everyone. I'm Rochelle Lasaraki, and I'm back with another interview with the lovely Joanne.
Hello.
And Joanne is the creator of Dandelion's Promise.
Yep.
You can tell it's the start of a new interview, and we're having all these awkward pauses.
I mean, that's how I roll. I'm just an awkward person,
Same. Why don't you start us off by reading the introduction to your webtoon?
Of course, sure. All right. For generations, the Aestrals and Cenician lived peaceful lives in Astra. Led by two great kings, they achieved countless advancements together. But one day, a political plot divides the kingdom and plunges the land into all-out war. Two teenagers, Ian, an Aestral, and Felton, a Cenician, share the goal of reuniting their lands, finding their way through life and in the wide world of Astra, and they learn what it truly takes to attain peace for their homeland. Yeah.
Yay! We got through that. But I've been seriously so excited for this interview because when you messaged me and I opened up your webtoon and I'm looking through it and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so good. Like your art and your story is so interesting. I can't wait to see more already.
Well, thank you so much.
No problem. So how did you get into art?
I guess like any other normal artist would say, the moment you can hold a pencil, you start drawing. I mean, that was how I started because life was a lot simpler back then. There was no such thing called internet.
Yeah.
Or at least where I live. So paper and pencil was all you have to have fun. And I'm not an outdoor person, so I just like to stay in and draw.
Were you always like the art kid, or did you get more seriously into art later on in life then?
Oh yeah, I was always the art kid. I mean, I have a lot of people that told me the moment they look at me, I was like, you do art, right? And I'm like, what does that mean? Do I have the art face?
The art face?
What does an art face look like? But yeah, I mean, since young, people sort of just knew me as the art kid because I sort of always just be holding my files of papers, walking around the school and just drawing whenever I can. Yeah. It's quite the normal stuff, I would say. It's like nothing interesting in my opinion, because it's just that typical art kid that just goes around with papers and notebooks.
So how did you learn more of the artistic techniques? Did you have a school that was good with art, or were you more self-taught?
As you know, I've been drawing in like almost my entire life. So I knew I was weak in my fundamentals when I was in the age of my high school times. It's like you know how we artists always talk about always flipping your canvas to check the proportion of the drawing.
Yeah.
But back then there was no such thing. So what I did, I have to flip the paper. And then find a light to check the proportion, and it's always way off. And I didn't know why. So there's a lot of self-initiative on my side that I told my parents I want to take this up more and I need to get my fundamentals right from the start. So they actually sent me to I can't say it's a tuition, but it's more like a curriculum, that sort of thing. Like it's an art teacher that teaches you. So I've been learning sketching basics from him up to my college days. Of course, my parents know since the start, this girl, we just need to save up money for art college, basically. So they knew what kind of college I was about to go, so they have been saving up for for the longest time of their life, just so that they could send me to college. Thank you, Papa, Mama. But yeah, they sent me to an art college. It was like one of the best college in Malaysia, art college in Malaysia. But I'm skeptical about it. But never mind. The most important part is what I got out of it, right? So yeah, I did took art college, but I wasn't taking illustration or digital animation sort of thing. I was taking something completely different than what I'm doing currently. I was doing multimedia design.
Oh, what's that?
Yeah, so I was doing a lot of coding, a lot of interactive design that mostly not relevant right now because the software has died.
Oh.
This new software coming out, and I'm like, well, there goes my diploma, I guess. You know?
I feel like that's true for like all kinds of like art and technology stuff, because I've heard all kinds of stories of people who go in to do like 3D modeling, and by the time they graduate, the software that the school was teaching is so outdated they don't know what to do.
Yeah. That was literally the case for me. Like the moment I step out of college after I graduated, Flash animation was bye-bye.
Yeah.
You know? It's like back then you still use Flash to do your coding, to do like I love those mini games from Flash. Like they have pretty drawings, and I'm not sure if you were part of that generation, to be honest. But Flash animation was like one of the inspiration that I thought like, oh yeah, maybe I should take multimedia design so I can create like mini games for my story, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I mentioned, the moment I step out, Flash animation was goodbye to the Adobe. So
isn't like
there goes my diploma.
I keep getting these like Google Chrome notifications that they're gonna stop even allowing Flash to be used with Google Chrome at the end of this year.
Yeah. But it was way earlier before like Flash was just getting out of favor from Adobe and the creative market. People were going more into the newer softwares. So
that's probably why they rebranded it too. It's like Animate now.
Yeah. But I tried to use it, but I just couldn't understand the software, or at least like maybe I just didn't have the initiative to relearn it. So because I was working by that time, and my day job is like hell for me, so I barely have any time to do my own art project, that sort of things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I did go to art school, but I didn't learn illustration. I took technically advertising and communication, basically.
So how did you get into comics?
When I was young, again, I read Doraemon. I'm not sure if you know Doraemon.
I haven't read it, but I know about it. Yeah, it's the pocket one.
Yeah, the pocket, the blue cat pocket.
Yeah.
My early days, Doraemon was like one of the most popular comics in Malaysia. You know, so I spent a lot of my time reading Doraemon. I love the imaginative part. You know, all the inventions that the author created. And like I tried to, you know, recreate those scenes that I love, that sort of thing, and then like try to create my own story out of it based on those inventions. And I don't know why, like in my early days, I just sort of remember that when I was a kid, holidays seemed so long for me, you know.
Yeah.
Like I felt like I have a lot of time, and now I barely have time at all. So I remember when I was younger, my parents would send me off to my mother's side of the family to like a staycation. So my mother's side of the family are like farmers, so they have their own farm.
Mm-hmm.
This is like Harvest Moon, man. So in the day, I would like help my grandfather to tend the farm, feed the chickens, feed the ducks, and sort of thing. And during my free time, I would draw. And my grandfather was actually curious about what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
So he sat next to me and asked me to explain what I was doing at the time. And I recall vividly that I was drawing heaven with unicorns because, God, you can't make me shut up about unicorns at the time. So I do not know what sort of mushrooms I took that day, but I was just blabbering about how heaven was like with unicorns and they are just galloping on the clouds to my grandfather. And my grandfather was really old at the time, and I guess he sort of knew that his time was about to go,
Mm-hmm.
and he did told me, all my parents, that like, oh, your daughter has been talking about heaven and she has such a vivid imagination about it. You know what? It makes me not be afraid of death.
Oh.
Yeah. Like he felt at peace about it when I was telling this sort of story to him.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I just from then my parents he actually sort of forced my parents to like make sure that they send me to an art college. It's like because he sort of saw something in me at the time, and he said that it would be a waste if they do not nurture it. Yeah, so since then, like my parents have sent me to like there's this curriculum called this full brain education.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's called full brain education. It was in Chinese. It's called 全脑, but I do not know what's the English term, but I guess it's full brain education. So I remember going into the activity and they taught me about how to use my brain for storytelling, and I really liked those classes a lot because as I see it now, I think it's 101 bullshitting basically. They taught me 101 bullshitting, but yeah, I mean, I guess that's how it started. It was really because of Doraemon, and then it leads to one another, and my parents sent me off, and like, yeah.
Could you talk
That's
a little
how
bit?
I got into comics.
Could you talk a little bit more about what they taught you? Like, what exactly you meant by like bullshitting 101?
Okay, so I one of the classes that I did really well was actually storytelling. Because I think they have different programs in that one class. So I remember like they brought props, and then they put the props onto maybe a table, a chair, or whatever, and then they asked us to come out a story based on the props that's laying in front of us.
Mm.
And I don't know, man. Again, I do not know what mushroom I took that day, and I just like spit everything out that came from my brain. And my teachers was really impressed, and they continue to again nurture me in that way, like
Mm-hmm.
to talk more about storytelling. I can't remember the details, but I remember one of the activities was an apple on a chair. That's why I say there was probably a chair, a table, and some props because I vividly remembered an apple in a chair, and I do not know what sort of story I took. I tell because this was like when I was maybe about like 9 years old.
Oh, so pretty young.
Yeah,
Did they have you come up with stories based off of the props then?
yeah. It's really entirely up to you. It's basically to allow your brain to train how to think, in sort of like fast pace. Because I'm not sure if it's true, but they were saying that like, oh, this class is supposed to allow your children to be smarter. But in no ways I feel smarter, but I just felt like I gained a knowledge basically.
Yeah, I definitely see how that. It's so neat to hear how important storytelling is just to you from such an early age too. Because I hear a lot of stories about like art in particular, but you also have storytelling on your side for sure.
Yeah. I have always been really interested in storytelling. It's like I I don't know why. There's just something so magical about it.
So, are there any other like storytelling medium besides comics that like really influenced you? It's like movies or TVs or books?
Yeah, movies. Movies was one of it. Series also. I binge a lot of series.
Mm.
So I can't say for books because like I have the shortest attention span ever.
Same.
Like my boyfriend actually brought a lot of books from his house and told me like you should read this, you should read that. I'm just looking at the books piling up on my table. It's like, yeah, they're not decreasing, aren't they? And my boyfriend is just like, nope. But yeah, I do enjoy a great movie or a series. Like for some strange reason, I have a short span for books, but I have the longest span for series and movies. Like I can go for movie marathon, for like few hours and sort of thing, or like the entire day.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that I had a bucket list of like I want to go to just spend one whole day in the cinema. So I've been like just watching movies after movies, and I did it, and it was really great. You know.
Oh, yeah, that must be really cool. I'm thinking about doing something like that soon because
Mhm.
movie theater tickets are just so cheap right now. I feel like I could just stay in there one all day. Or like they have this promotion where you can rent a whole theater for about $100. Like
Damn!
the whole thing. And I'm just
Wow!
wondering like what you could do with it. Like if you got like a bunch of people who are like maybe in like the same house as you or something and you all chipped in a little bit of money, it might be fun.
Yeah, totally, man. I mean, you should definitely try it. Like, just I remember like I'm not sure about the American system, but basically when we buy our tickets here, we buy the time slot that was available.
Mm-hmm.
So I recall the time slot that I chosen was literally back to back. So the moment the movie finished, I could get out of the theater. I had to run to the next theater hall to watch the movie, and then like by the end of it, I have to run off to the next theater hall to catch the next movie. And I was doing it all alone.
Yeah, it's something similar. Yeah.
Yeah. So I should totally try that. But
What
yeah,
ki-
I really love movie a lot. I actually got into videography at one point of my life.
mm-hmm.
I learned about camera works. I learned about storyboarding, directing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, I'm not like the best person to talk about it, but like I do know certain rules and stuff like that because again, I think I'm just a ball of full of initiative. Like I want to learn stuff. I'm just excited to learn, so took it up. I think that's where I learned about storyboarding and continue to nurture the storytelling part in me. That sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
I learned about perspective.
I've also
Perspective
been
was the
oh
worst.
oh yeah, perspective. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
I mean, I'm sure a lot of artists, young artists, find background perspectives are hard to draw.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt it too. I was really afraid of it even. But I guess, again, initiative was bigger than my fear, so I took it up. Uh, I mean, to be honest, like, as much a lot of people compliment about my background, I feel
Mm-hmm.
like my background has a lot of mistakes in terms of perspective.
Oh.
Like, if you look at it closely, like I'm not sure. I'm sure you're probably familiar with the term, like the 1 point perspective, 2 point
Yeah,
perspective,
yeah.
sort of thing. Yeah, like if you align the lines together, you realize that like my perspectives were actually all jumbled up together.
Oh.
But I just try to keep the general rule, like, okay, if it's like horizontal line here, you know, I make sure there's no like third point perspective. I still make sure that it's still somewhat look coherent.
Yeah.
But just letting you know, if you look at it closely for my background, you can see a lot of mistakes.
Well, I feel like it almost feels more alive if it's just really, really slightly not perfect. Because like I don't draw backgrounds for my series. I usually do 3D models. But
yeah, I saw.
I noticed that when I am drawing them, if I just do the perfect straight lines to put everything on, things look really stiff. But if I like really slightly curve the lines that are like leading to the vanishing point, it looks super cool. You know?
Yeah. For some strange reason, you know, like they created all these theories, and in the end, like, I mean, of course, it will help in the long run. I mean, it is a fundamental after all. But again, just do what you can, I guess. You know, if being rigid is not what you like for your work, then you don't have to. I mean, look at famous painters, you know, from history. Their perspective is, I can't say it's shit, but like it's not perfect either, you know. It's like some things look a bit off, but hey, it still look great as a painting.
Yeah. Oh, especially if you look at the stuff that's like right before the Renaissance. It's like the craziest stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder what sort of mushroom they think. You know?
Yeah. But I was surprised too. I don't think people understand how much that perspective helps with things other than just drawing backgrounds. Like, learning perspective helped me draw bodies from imagination so much. Probably more than it helped me learn how to draw backgrounds.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's really essential to learn perspective if you want to put your character in a living, breathing space.
Yeah.
You know. So yeah, in the end, you will have to face it as an artist. If you want to like do it professionally or like seriously, perspective. You shouldn't be afraid of it because it's not gonna eat you anyway.
Maybe.
It probably just eat your time, and time is precious.
Yeah, it won't eat you, it'll just eat your time.
Yeah. It ate plenty of my time.
Same. Every single episode. It gets easier and easier, but the easier it gets, the harder the challenges you want to take. So then it gets harder and harder again.
Yes. Oh man. And for some strange reason, like I just love to challenge myself with hard things. Like you know, like how I think you and some of the interviewers and some of the artists that does webtoon content, they talk about, oh, you don't have to put so much effort on your background because in the end of the day, people are just gonna scroll past.
Yeah.
It's like it doesn't take like 1 second or something to like just look through everything. And then there's me here. No, I want to do more backgrounds. I want to do it anyway.
I feel like for your skill level, it does actually add to the piece. Like,
really?
yeah, like I remember opening up your webtoon for the first time, and it starts with that shot of like the I'm just gonna open it really
the background.
Yeah, it starts with that shot of like all the houses and the castle by, I'm guessing, the sea, and it's just it's absolutely gorgeous. Like, it's definitely worth it for you to do backgrounds because they just add so much. My backgrounds, maybe not so much.
I mean, I do love looking at backgrounds actually when I'm reading a comic.
Mm-hmm.
It really does say a lot about the artist.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
for sure.
I think one of the reasons why I venture into wanting to do my background is because Naruto.
Oh
I
yeah.
used to read the manga, yeah, and I remember their first scene. Yeah, their first scene was also a background, you know, or
Mm-hmm.
something that sort. And like, damn, it's so gorgeous. It's so detailed. Like the freckles on the wall, they drew it, that sort of thing. And I remember like looking at that first panel for like at least a few good minutes,
Yeah.
just staring at the quality of the art and just damn.
Yeah. I feel like
And
Naruto, like, it really helps to sell the world too. And it does this, your
yeah,
backgrounds do the same thing. It like really helps to sell the world itself and just put you in it.
yeah. I mean, because when I was doing my world building, I wasn't really. Uh, I mean, I was sort of replicating our own world based on the
Mm-hmm.
past. Trying to get reference here and there. But I'm not sure if you realize, but my world is actually based a lot on the European culture, especially the Scandinavian part.
Yeah, I definitely noticed.
Yeah. So, uh, as much as this world, my world building has nothing to do with our modern world, but like it does share similarities because there is a whole bigger plot at the I would say at the end of it, but like yeah, the reason why my world shared some of these things from our world because you know there is a bigger picture of it,
Yeah.
even though it's a my own world building. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so yeah, I totally agree that it really helps in putting your story, creating the world to allow people to see that sort of stuff, can imagine. But really though, I don't know why I'm doing this to myself.
We both have
Why?
like we both have that like just go for it like spirit, you know?
Yeah. I mean,
Sometimes
like
I
you
feel a
only
little
live
crazy
once.
too. Yeah.
It's like I remember I because actually Dandelion Promise is a so I've been redrawing many times this
Mm.
story. So when I finally decided to go with this, my my editor was like, "You sure you want to do with this style of art?" And I'm just like, "Bring it on."
Yeah. If you know what you're going
they,
for, then definitely go for it.
yeah, they weren't concerned about my production time because I technically do everything alone.
Mm-hmm.
It was only much later that I found out that in comic in normal production for comics, traditional comics, it's like there will be a writer, there will be an artist, there will be a background artist, there will be an inker,
Yeah,
that sort of
yeah.
thing. So it's like a group project, and here I am like I'm gonna do this alone. Yay! Happy cries.
Yeah. I feel like part of it really depends on people's personalities too. Like and what parts you really enjoy doing. Like I prefer to focus on like the just the character drawing. I'm not much of like a colorist. I'm not much of a background person. So I really love drawing the characters and doing the character work. But like
Oh yeah,
everyone has their own sort of thing that they find special, and I think people should really run with it, and it's going to be different for everyone.
yeah. I mean, I love drawing characters. I love drawing their expressions, their story. But I guess the reason why I decided to do everything on my own because I thought these artists do it on their own. You
Oh.
know, I
Yeah,
thought like,
no.
oh, if I want to be a good comic artist, I have to be like this quality. And so I spent many years just so that like I could be on par to that quality. And here I am realizing that actually that's not the case.
Yeah. Even in Japan, if they're writing it on their own, they usually have assistants to help do like the toning and sometimes the backgrounds and
Yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
yeah. I was just like, you know what? I mean, I don't have money to hire these assistants anyway.
Yeah, same.
I would love to, but like I don't have that kind of money. So I'm gonna do it myself. I'm gonna put myself through hell.
Mm.
And yeah. So I can't say like I have any part particular that I like because I think I generally enjoy all of them. But of course I do find background very tiresome.
Mm.
Like I think these days if I don't have to draw background, I would not draw background. But also because I think my audience they understand where I'm at because I actually have carpal tunnel. So like they don't want me to stress my hands. So they're like, you know what? You don't have to do so great. You know, we really love what you're doing. You don't have to push yourself. And then here I am, like I must push through.
Yeah. Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely take your time if you have an injury. Injuries can be kind of
Yeah.
hard. Yeah.
It hits me so hard this year. It came out of nowhere
Mm-hmm.
because in terms of working hours, I work the same as when I was doing my full time or even more. So when I decided to come out from my full time job to pursue comic full time,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I guess my body just decided to like, hey, I'm gonna drop you this carpal tunnel bomb now and bye.
Oh. Oh.
Yeah, so it was really devastating for me in the middle of the year because I got it in May
Oh, yeah.
and I I didn't know what was going on. I assume it's carpal tunnel because like when I draw my wrist hurts. So and they told me you will only need surgery when it's really bad. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't want it to go bad.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, so they told me like, oh, you can do like hot bath soak, you know, for your hands or massaging or exercising. So that's what I've been doing thus far. And a lot of my audience are still asking me how's my hand, but you know, let's be honest here, my hand it was forever gonna be this way.
Yeah.
I just have to find ways to work around with it. And yeah, doing backgrounds, that means cutting backgrounds is probably one of it. You
Mm.
know, just so that I stress lesser on my wrists.
Do you have any advice for artists who either have carpal tunnel or like preventing carpal tunnel?
Posture. Don't sit like a prawn. I I totally understand when you are drawing, your face tend to go nearer and nearer to the screen. I totally get it. But I feel that's probably one of the reasons why I got my carpal tunnel because I have very bad posture.
Mm.
So if you can fix your posture at an early age, please do. Don't be like me.
Mm-hmm.
Which at this age it's really hard for me to fix something that is almost permanent.
Yeah.
It's not to say I can't, but like it's really hard for me. So
Mm.
if you can find it out earlier, you know, when you start to slouch, your shoulder starts to bend inwards, that's when you need to like, nope, you need to straighten it up, sit straight, and draw.
Yeah. I sat
I
up
think a
the
lot of
moment that you said that.
I mean, I did too because I find myself starting to slouch as well. But
Yeah.
no, and it's good for you because, like, I mean, if you're aware, if you're, I mean, a bit conscious about your appearance, you know, you don't want to slouch.
Mm.
You need to stand straight.
Yep.
And I guess a lot of wrist exercises. I mean, if you're already having carpal tunnel, I mean, I'm sure the viewers probably done some their own research on Google what to do when carpal tunnel happens. Because let's be real here, the moment your wrist start to hurt, you like, what's going on? Google, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. You start
So
panicking.
yeah, I'm sure Google will tell you what to do. But one thing that I found out that apparently your sleeping posture affects it too.
Oh. How
Yeah, the way
so?
you sleep. Apparently, if it's always best if you are sleeping straight, you know, facing up. But
Mm-hmm.
I, as a sleeper, I like to cradle like a baby and like a prawn. Uh, so apparently, you even when you're sleeping on your side, you have to keep your neck straight. You know, you
Oh.
can't slouch. So the way to not allow your head to slouch is to have a bolster or a pillow
Mm-hmm.
to support your neck.
Oh.
Yeah, so that you will not unconsciously to slouch, basically to prawn.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I realized.
Mm-hmm.
I've read on Google because I it's not like I have a lot of money to see a doctor, so
Mm.
but I did found out that yeah, sleeping posture does help me for the next day when I start a new day because uh the pain is always there for me, but
Mm.
it really depending how pain is it, like the percentage and throughout the day how much I've drawn and how much it builds up from there.
Mm-hmm.
So when it's really painful at night, I would wear like a sleep guard for my hand and make sure that I'm properly like postured when I sleep. And I have to wear a neck braces. You know, like those cones like dogs.
Oh. Yeah.
Not gonna lie. My boyfriend when he look at me during nighttime when I'm like about to go to sleep, to wear this, I have to wear that, and he's just like I feel like I'm dating an old woman. Yeah.
Yeah. You have your brace on, you have your cone on. What more
Yeah.
could you need?
Yeah, you really don't be like me. Fix your posture earlier on. Please, artists. I beg you.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about Webtoon a little.
Alright, sure.
So how did you discover Webtoon or like the online comic community?
Uh People shared with me. Like they knew that I love doing comics,
Mm-hmm.
but because at that time it's either traditional comic was still a thing back then, and like it was either you go for a publisher or you self-publish.
Mm.
So I didn't know any publisher, so I just decided I'm gonna self-publish. Wasted a fortune there, but like I mean, thank goodness I didn't print a lot, but like it still cost a fortune because
Oh,
like
so you were actually
the
printing
cost of
them.
paper. Yeah, I actually printed them, so it was really not cost effective on my side.
Mm-hmm.
And because comic is not really a thing in Malaysia, it's like I mean it's slowly getting attention, but it's still not getting the attention that it needs as much from America.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew that like publishing traditionally was not the way for me to go as of now. I would love to do it traditional. In fact, actually, I am doing my webcomic in a traditional style and also the webcomic style layout.
Oh.
You know, so I have both options. If like when I have the cash, I want to print, or like a publisher wants to offer to print for me, and at least I have the files. But if not, then yeah. So my friend told me about Webtoon. It was not related to comic at all, surprisingly. But because I was watching a lot of Korean dramas back then, and there was one Korean drama that was adapted from Webtoon itself.
Mm.
You know, my friend told me about it, and she was like, "Hey Joe, you should totally watch this Korean drama. I think you would love it. It's from a Webtoon." And I was like, "What's Webtoon?" So
Oh.
then she told me, "Oh, it's actually a Korean online comic platform for artists to post up their comic for free. Of course, some of them are being featured, but at that time, I still didn't know about the whole featured story yet. I just like, wow, there's this comic that got adapted into a TV series,
Mm-hmm.
and the comic is not done, but it's already adapted to a TV series."
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you know about that title. It's called Cheese in the Trap.
Oh, I haven't seen the whole thing, but I watched part of it with my friends.
Yeah, I watched the drama. I didn't read the comic, but like I did read a few pages. But for some strange reason, I wasn't into Webtoon back then at all, because I think I was still stuck in my old ways. Like, I still prefer traditional comics. I love reading having a physical copy on my hand itself. I love that sort of format.
Mm-hmm.
So Webtoon back then for me was super new, man. So yeah, so that's how I found out about Webtoon. Actually, it was because of K-drama.
Yeah. I need to watch more K-dramas. It's been a while since I really watched a bunch.
Yeah,
But
but like,
oh, you
because
keep
before
going.
Webtoon, oh yeah, I mean, because before Webtoon, I'm not sure if you heard of Beehives. It's basically they are a webcomic publishing house as well, where they basically help artists to uh, get a space to publish their webcomic online. But it was not a vertical scrolling; it was still page by page. So I thought that I'll probably go that route then. If I were ever to start a webcomic.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I thought, like, yeah, it makes sense for me to do the A4 size, because I do want to print it. But I guess around maybe like 2 years ago, where I think Webtoon was really booming,
Mm-hmm.
Especially on the American side, if I'm not mistaken, because they came in at 2016 for you guys, right? Or 2015, I can't
I
remember.
think 2015, but I don't remember.
It's probably 2015, because 2016 was the Cheese in the Trap debut. So it was getting a lot more attraction, and it was competing with Tapas, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So I did sort of like took some time to evaluate whether do I want to go through a publishing house, or like should I post on Webtoon or Tapas. So yeah, in the end we all know where I went.
So
yeah.
what made you finally change your mind and switch to scrolling format then? Or was it like a gradual thing?
I I generally am still doing the traditional format, but it's just that I do the vertical format layout on my computer. The reason why I've decided to do it, because I think, yeah, the future of web comics will be done this way. I think,
Mm-hmm.
as much as I miss the whole having the two spreads and the one spread, they all have its own meaning. Why it's being two spread or why it's being one spread of art. And I felt like it cannot be achieved in the vertical scrolling format. And that is very sad for me, but I realized that, hey, actually, for how we normally do our full spread is basically one long panel of art.
Yeah.
Just because you want to emphasize it. So yeah, I guess it's just training the way I think now when I panel for my comic, like, because I think again, money is not sufficient right now for me to go into traditional publishing. So I've been working my comics based on the vertical style format because I do feel that this will be the future of webcomics. And I think it's a lot more natural in a way, like you scroll instead of pressing next page.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess like some of the webcomics that I've seen in the past, like their fonts was really small and one single page. You have to scroll. I mean, you have to zoom in.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but with Webtoon itself, like you completely doesn't have the gesture anymore. Like it's so natural for my hand to just keep moving, scrolling down. So yeah, I think this is the future of webcomic.
Definitely. It's so different from like when I try to read like manga online too, because I have to zoom in all the time and I'm just not used to it anymore,
Yeah, and okay, because I do know that America, you guys have your own law for the animes and mangas. Like you guys get to read them for free or something. But in Malaysia, is not free at all. So you have to go to this like websites that has bunch of ads that you have to close just to read a manga.
Yeah.
So it's really troublesome. And I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna stick to Webtoon for now. It's just to save all the trouble from me closing the ads, basically.
Yeah. So what's your favorite thing about Webtoon itself? Or one of your favorite things? That's kind of a hard question.
It's a free platform. Like, they allow creators to create, basically, and earn from the ad revenue. I think, and I guess giving comic creators a chance to put out their story out there. Not a lot of back then there wasn't a lot of this sort of opportunity, Like if you want to do a comic, you have to approach a publisher or you have to self-publish basically. So when Webtoon and Tapas came out, it really brings a lot of good opportunity for young artists to share their passion for storytelling. So that's what I really love about Webtoon, And it's like also giving them the chance to be featured, to be paid to do what they love. But of course, you rely on certain luck and of course skills. But like, hey, it's doable. We have seen some of the canvas artists that became featured. So I really love the opportunity that they are giving for artists because let's be real, there are not a lot of opportunity for artists in the world itself. People look down on us.
Yeah.
Saying that like our certificate is a joke sometimes, especially like if you're in the more on the third world country sense when art is not a favor. So because when I was growing up, my father's side of the family, they are all accountants and they want me to pursue accounting, But obviously I can't math. So they gave on the idea. but I knew my father's side of family, part of my father's side of family didn't, and also my mom's side didn't really like what I was doing because I'm the art kid. I didn't have a future.
Yeah.
So they were putting a lot of expectation on my brother, which I'm really sorry for.
Oh, yeah.
But in the end, my brother also went into video production, which is also a creative side. But I guess in the Asian mindset, like they are okay with the guys doing certain things, but not okay with the girl doing certain things.
Mm.
So they were more supportive on my brother rather on me. So and even now I still have to sort of prove to my parents that like I am earning enough a month to sustain me and my boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
But to them it's like, you just draw the entire day. What do you earn, And it's very discouraging, to be honest, to hear your parents say that sometimes. So for Webtoon to create an opportunity for artists, to pay them either featured or ad revenue, it really does help to prove a point to traditionalists, especially traditional parents, that this sort of thing does earn money. Because I remember clearly when I was doing a commission for one of my clients, it was a portrait. Oh, my dad came back and I'm not sure what made him mad that day, but like he was just scolding me on like saying that like why are you just drawing all day, why don't you go and find work, that sort of thing, have a monthly income rather than just being at home, sitting, drawing, this kind of stuff. Yeah. My parents obviously doesn't know about Webtoon, but they do know I do comics. But they don't know how much I have grown as a comic artist. They just sort of like accepted the fact that like, yeah, my daughter is not going back to a full-time job soon.
Yeah. Like, my family isn't super strict, but I kind of understand it, because I feel like every once in a while I have to come out of, like, my room and be like, oh yeah, I'm actually doing something. Like, when I told my mom, like, you have to be kind of quiet because I'm doing an interview today, she's like, oh, you're actually doing an interview? People actually listen to those enough that you want to do another one?
Yeah, like, the entire thing about the YouTube career, I think not a lot of people are totally open about it. In Malaysia, mostly, people still think YouTube career is still it's not a job. It's just a hobby,
Yeah.
But in America and Europe, some people do live off just doing YouTube alone. I mean, like, look at PewDiePie. But of course, he is part of that 1%, but there are still many creators that are just doing YouTube for their day job. So I do believe that Webtoon will be the same for comic artists. They allow artists to do comics to become their day job, basically. So yeah, that's my favorite thing about Webtoon.
Yeah, and I'm definitely hoping for that too, because like I'm mainly just chilling here because I graduated at such an awkward time because of the pandemic. But I'm hoping that one day, hopefully soon, this will be an actual job for me, or at least the start of a general art career, because I didn't really post much art before I started working on my comic.
Right. How did you start though?
Oh, do you mean comics or art in general?
Yeah. Comics.
So, funny story. I've been asked this a couple times lately, but I'll just say it again because I think I've sort of talked about this in my earlier videos, but it's only recently that my channel has started to sort of like pick up steam. But originally I wanted to work in the Western animation industry as a storyboard artist.
Yeah.
And when I graduated
Yeah.
college, I went to a school where we did fine art. So we were doing a lot of abstract stuff. So it wasn't very helpful.
Yeah.
So I was having a lot of trouble getting a job. And I started making a short film because I heard that could help. But then partway doing the short film, I got really bored of the characters. So I was like, why don't I just do a small comic? It can be like 20 chapters at most. And I'll just figure out what the characters are like. And then that will make me excited about the film. So I ended up starting this. And fast forward many episodes later, I decided I liked this better than working on the film. So I just stuck with it. And it's obviously going to be way more than 20 episodes.
Yeah. Yeah, now that you mentioned, yes, it does recall my goldfish memory right now.
Honestly, same.
Yeah. That's...
Sometimes I go back and I watch the videos that I made in like the spring, and I'm like, oh, that's why I did that? I totally thought it was for a different reason.
Yeah, one thing led to another, right?
Yeah. So you were talking about like Tapas earlier too, right?
Yeah.
Do you post on Tapas too, or do you just post on Webtoon?
I just create an account and I just leave it to dust.
So why'd you end up doing that instead of posting both, or just posting on Tapas?
I think I think it was in 2019. I was doing sort of like a market survey, but not really a market survey. It was really like in secrets, like I didn't post up any sort of like post story like, oh, how many of you guys are actually on Tapas or Webtoon, that sort of thing. It was more of like I was creating content for my Inktober's, and I guess that's how I gained some attraction for an audience, and they were sort of like interested in the story of my characters, and they were asking me like, oh, are you posting this anywhere, like on Webtoon or Tapas? And I just like sort of like, pop my question like, oh, do you use Webtoon more or Tapas more?
That's such
and
a
most
smart
of them say
response,
Webtoon.
though. That's such a smart way to do it, yeah.
Yeah, so it was then I was like, oh, okay, since most of my audience are on Webtoon, I guess I'll go on Webtoon then.
Yeah, it sounds like it worked out. Yeah.
So yeah, I do have a Tapas account, but I never posted it because not a lot of my audience are on Tapas. So I sprinkle bread where it's at. Which is Webtoon, yeah.
So what do you feel like Webtoon or the webcomic community could work on?
I think a lot of your the people that you interviewed, they talk about the rating system and the like system, right?
Yeah.
I think those are true. I think those two really needs something done. There needs to be a better way to like a story, because, to be honest, I always forget to like.
Yeah, it's... yeah.
Because the entire time, my hand is just scrolling, it's not like double tapping or anything. So it's like, the moment if you scroll fast and then it leads you to the next chapter in a way, therefore you forgot to like. So for some of the creators where I really want to give my support, because they are small creators, so I would make sure that I would like it. But in terms of bigger creators, you just sometimes forget.
Yeah. And it gets harder the longer the series is too, because you have to like open up that banner thing at the bottom and then move your hand all the way down to the bottom of the screen. Yeah. And it just completely takes you out of it, and then you got to do that like 50 or like 100 times, depending on like how long somebody's series is. If it's really long, and it's just like,
yeah, I totally get that. The other thing is, the rating system. I really don't like the rating system. I think it's such a trigger for my anxiety.
Yeah, I'm waiting for that one rare person, because I haven't, even like just on like Twitter or like Discord, I haven't heard one person say that they like the rating system. So I'm just waiting for that unicorn out there who actually likes it. But go on. What exactly? How exactly does it give you anxiety?
Okay. First off, I just want to be clear. I used to like the rating system
Oh.
when I was not a comic creator. You know, as in like the rating system for me was really cool because like, oh, you can rate a comic based on like how well it's done, that sort of thing. And of course you will want to rate good or fair, you know, to the comic creators that you were reading. So and I'm usually really fair in my reading if I feel like there are some things could be worked on, but I will still give like above 5 because I'm not a dick basically.
Yeah.
So for me to reach like 5 is really because you're already creating something for yourself, and that is really admirable.
Mm-hmm.
So you're definitely worth more than a 5 or a 6, you know, for creating something. But now that I'm a comic creator, oh man, I guess when I was first starting out, at the time, I had about 1K followers on my Instagram, and there were people that was looking forward for my comic. So when I finally published it, for some strange reason, I think someone rated me super low. I didn't know, was it from my own audience or like was it someone from like a Webtoon reader itself. But the person rated me super low, and I was just like, oh, that's it. My anxiety.
There's the end.
So, but I was like, oh, it's just one person, right? I guess it's supposed to be easily supposed to get back up. Of course, I will not get a 10 anymore, but like, I still think it's easy to repair back to 9, you know?
Yeah.
Because I mean, I'm putting so much effort. I must at least see a 9.5.
Yeah.
I'm not competitive to other people, but I'm competitive to myself. Like, you know, I put so much effort. I think it's worth the 9.5. So, but I don't know. I mean, like, viewers have their own opinions. I'm not the best creators outside, but like, yeah. But I do heard that like there were trolls around on Webtoon that would rate you super low for the sake of rating, because from when Webtoon put me up on special, I was gaining a lot of attraction, more than I can handle actually, because I think I wrote in my creator's note that to be honest, I was expecting to reach about 350 subs, and I was really happy about it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so when that sudden fluctuation of people coming in, and I know that there were more people reading it, that means more people are rating it.
Yeah.
And like I seen the numbers going down and up, and I was just like,
I could imagine, yeah. Because I know
like,
some people get jealous that they don't get specials, and then they'll go in and they'll downvote all the specials.
Yeah, and I was just like, why do people do that? I'm like, what have I done to you? You know, I was pretty devastated, like, but not to my depression point, but I was still sad. But in the end, my editors was just like, you know what? I mean, know that your comics are not gonna be appealing to everybody, you know. And they did mention to me that the moment when you are hitting a hater, I guess, I mean, like, you're attracting a hater means it's a good thing. That means you are sort of growing in a way.
Yeah, it means you have something that's actually interesting enough that they're gonna take time out of their day to, I don't know,
To
vent
hate
their
it.
own problems on you.
Yeah. So my editors were trying to tell me to comfort me by saying that I'm doing something right. So I've been trying to keep my heads up, even though the rating is still going up and down nowadays. But
Yeah.
it doesn't affect me as much as it used to when it was gaining attraction. Yeah.
Mm.
I was not used to it. I was perfectly happy with my small audience.
Oh. So we're back with our next segment. So we're going to talk about your webtoon in particular, but something I
Okay.
wanted to make sure that we talked about first, because I think it's really important, and I'm not sure I've had anyone on yet who has had this before, but I wanted to hear you talk about the importance of having an editor. Or you said you have two, right?
Two.
Yeah. So could you talk a little about that?
Sure. I mean, I think a lot of people have the misconception of an editor being like the over evil lord that dictates your story, which I want to debunk that, you know. Like,
Yeah.
no, that's not what an editor do. And if an editor does that, he is a bad editor. He's not doing his job. But yeah, I guess the importance of having an editor is basically they are your first sets of eyes to view the story.
Mhm.
They are somewhat like a beta reader, but not beta reader. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for everyone who doesn't know what a beta reader is, could you explain what that is?
Oh, a beta reader is basically someone who gets. It's like your VVIP people. You know, they get to read your story first, or like the first draft, or whatever draft, how many drafts you have done. But they are the ones that get to see it first and see whether it works. You know,
Mm.
do they understand the stories and all? And I actually do have a set of questions to ask when I give to my beta readers for viewing,
Oh.
so that I know that whatever I have in mind for that chapter, it hits the role, you know.
Mm.
Because sometimes when we make a comic, we sometimes forget that like what the chapter needs to say, or like or you completely miss the point of the entire chapter itself. So it's really important that you have beta readers or an editor to help you make sure that your goals are met for the chapter or the story itself. Yeah, basically.
So what exactly do you send them? Are you sending them like your scripts? Are you sending them the finished comic or like the thumbnails?
So for my beta reader, they actually get to see the sketch, which means it's like almost towards the final. So it's before production, which is inking and coloring.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so they get to see the sketch and comment on it. For my comic editors, they get to see the script. I usually would draft down my dialogues first, or an outline of what the chapter is supposed to be, what it's supposed to cover, and then I would present it to my editors, who is my friends. So good thing is it's technically just like a coffee shop kind of talk. Like hey, I'm working on the chapters right now. It'd be great if I can get your feedbacks on the dialogues and all sorts, or like the general flow of the story. So they will comment on that, and then I'll fix the dialogues while doing the storyboard. And when we come together again is when the time I will show them dialogues and storyboard itself to see they are okay with it. You know, like if there's a direction that needs to be changed or not, or like this scenes doesn't add up, you need to add more scenes, you need to add more panels. Yeah, so it will done within those stages. That's what my editor does, you know. In a way, they are sort of my development editor because they get to comment on my structure and content of my work and giving me the right direction. They don't necessarily, I don't necessarily have to take their advice, but their advice are mostly there because they know their stuff. They understand how storytelling narrative works. So I guess the reason why a lot of artists or comic artists, new comic artists, doesn't like what an editor does, because we always think that our first draft is the best, and we don't want other people to tell us we are wrong.
Yeah.
But not all ideas is the best idea in your first try. You have to go through many rounds of corrections. It's basically a critique session in a way. So you allow yourself to improve as one, and allow your editors to have a safe space for them to talk about it. Because if you're just seeking for compliment, then your editors are not there to give you compliments, basically. Your editors are there to tell you, okay, what you did is alright, but this can be better. This can serve your story much better, sort of thing. But of course, yeah, I will still evaluate what they will say, and I'll make up my own results based on their comments, and it is then by once I finish the storyboard and the sketching, I will show it to my beta readers, and oftentimes my beta readers love what my editors are doing. Yeah, so
how long does the editing process usually take?
Still sort of new to having editors. Thankfully, I live with one of them. So I would say the process is sometimes can take out about a month, because I am busy, my editors are busy. We all have our own lives to, we still need to put bread on the table at the end of the day. So I can only work with them whenever they are free. That's why I say it usually take about a month time. My entire pre-production will take about a month, from dialogues to storyboarding.
So is your how far ahead are you usually on sketches then, if you're waiting like a month to get all of that done, or are you just moving at the same pace?
Oh man, I guess I can say it for chapter 3, because my entire timeline for chapter 4 is just messed up right now. I haven't done any sort of production yet. It's still in pre-production phase. But this, when I finish chapter 1, I allow myself to have one more chapter buffer, that sort of thing. So I still make sure that I finish chapter 2 first. Then only I start posting on Webtoon. So by the time when chapter 1, part 1 comes out, I'm working on chapter 3.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I have, because I only update twice a month. So I have a lot of time to work on chapter 3. It's just that, life happens, and now I have no time to work on chapter 4.
Yeah. So, how do you find beta readers?
One of my beta readers I met online. She is also a storyteller herself. She writes. So she found me on Fiverr because she wanted to get her character's commission done. So it was then it's how we know each other, and we sort of talked a lot about her story and my story, and I was just I popped the question hey, actually I'm sort of looking for feedback. Great. I mean, since you love storytelling, I thought it'd be great. It's a great opportunity for me to give it to you, to read it, read through and tell me what you think. I can't read her story because it's in Vietnam, but if I could understand Vietnam, I would offer her my beta reading service as well. But yeah, generally it's just the people I choose are very specific. I don't mass show to people. It's only to people that I know that I value your the value you give on storytelling. Like I know you know your stuff, so it's best that I pass my stories for you to better read. So I usually have two people who knows their stuff and one general public, because the general view is in the end is still my target audience. So if the general public one loves what I do, then it's great. But if I want to continue to improve myself, then yeah, I have two beta readers that they know storytelling, they know narratives, so they can give me a good comments and feedback on how I can improve my craft.
Yeah. And it's I think a lot of people get their first experience with like online critique from somebody saying something like really randomly negative, like just a random person. So like just for the people listening, it's different from a random person because you're selecting these people and you know that they know what they're talking about and they're not trying to sabotage you.
Yeah. And basically these are friends to me, and I value what they do for me. I just have to give back the same value to them.
Yeah. So
yeah.
What in your opinion makes for a good editor if somebody wants to go out and find one after listening to this interview?
The thing is about finding an editor is, I heard they can be expensive. So I would say if you have a friend who loves storytelling, who loves to watch movies, but they're not the general public. They love movies as in like they understand narrative, they know about writing. If you have that sort of friend, leverage on it, make use of that friend. Don't let him go.
Tap them.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, like if you are how to say, like don't know how to approach, you can just say like, oh, I actually have a story. If you don't mind listening, I can treat you for a coffee or something, and we talk about it over lunch or something. To get them interested, to want to be your editor, because at least how I found mine. Two of mine. One is my college friend, and then one is my working partner. We used to be colleagues, and I found out that he writes stories too, and that's how I started a conversation about storytelling with him. And like we just sort of like share our ideas, and we're like, hey, why not we be each other's critique partner?
Yeah.
You look at the drafts that I have, I look at the drafts that you have, that sort of thing. So it was then it eventually moved him into a comic editor role in my comic, because he was starting to give a lot of valuable feedback for my story. And I felt like no one else understood my story as much as he does, or the other editor. Because the other editor is like, I know her since college, and we have also shared about storytelling. She writes fanfic, and I draw stories. So we just sort of share the similarities, and like we share our own craft to each other, comfortable enough to share our own craft to each other. And again, I felt like no one else know my story better than my editors. It needs to reach that level, and that's why they say comic editors are actually your best friends. So it really hurts me when people say that editor is the evil person that tries to dictate your story, because I think that's just a very bad misconception on how it works. Because the traditional editors, they have their own deadlines to meet as well, because they are technically still working. And the traditional editors, they basically have to work with the writers, and once the writer finish their draft, they have to send it off to the artists, the inkers, all within a tight deadline. And if the writers screw up, basically this bunch of people have to suffer because of the writer, And
Yeah.
I thought maybe that's why people have that sort of look for editors, like, the editors are bad because they're constantly pushing you. Craft is not supposed to be pushed, it's supposed to be done at a certain time, which is true, but in the end it's still a business, and business requires money, and time is money for business people.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, it's really not entirely it's the editor's fault in a way. So it editors and writers or artists, we really have to work collaboratively. It's a lot about communication. If one cannot meet the deadline, make sure you tell the other person. It's all about accountability. Yeah. So make sure when you have a chance to find an editor, you make sure that this person respect your timeline, and understand that how much time it takes for your craft to produce. Be open for criticism. If you're not open for criticism, you're just doing an art project for yourself. So if you want to improve, if you're asking, if you have questions in your head like, oh, I want to work on a story, but I don't know how to be better. Be open to criticism, basically. And find the right person that is able to give you the correct comment. Also, don't find like another Tom, Dick, Jerry, or whatever, anyone in the world. Make sure that this person has the same interests. Like, I can't just go to because my genre is fantasy. I can't just go to a sci-fi genre person and ask about their opinion, because their opinion will not bring. I mean, they might bring some food for thoughts, but it will not be good in a way. It's not the entire thing for your story, because it's a different genre. I say this to my editor some time ago, like, finding an editor is like finding a husband or a wife. It's like compatibility has to be there and sort of thing. In a way, it's like you are taking care of a baby.
You're raising the comic together.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the same for X Summer and Ayako. Is it her name? The one that do File Regime. Yeah. It's a lot of communication, It's really hard to work artists with a writer, like comic editors, comic artists, because it involves with a lot of communication. And I understand artists don't like to talk.
Oh, yeah. Some artists.
When you reach adult life, when you reach adult life, you have to learn how to communicate. That's just how the world works. Yeah.
Yeah, especially if you want to try and do art or comics or even writing for a living. You can't just make it for yourself and expect people to automatically understand and want to put their money towards it. I mean, maybe you could luck out and that could work out for you, but you have to put a little bit of thought into others and learn whether or not they understand what you're trying to do.
Yeah, it's really important, communication. And that's why the editor role is to make sure that whatever that you are writing makes sense.
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to talk about is I wanted to talk about how you do your coloring, because your coloring is just so beautiful. I love it.
Oh, thank you.
For everyone who hasn't checked it out, it's like you have like this great sense of like a color palette, and then there's also there's so many like watercolory vibes. I'm just trying to get an image in people's heads who are just listening, but it's really pretty.
Thank you. Big shout out to Max Pax, because I'm using his watercolor brush on Procreate. Without his brush, I probably would not be achieve what I'm doing today. So big shout out to him. To anybody who are curious on what type of brush I'm using. Yeah, he's called Max Pax. Max Pack, yeah. But in terms of colors, I guess when I was doing my world building, I sort of knew like the astrals are in red and the senations are in blue, you know.
Mm.
And it's also based on historical, how monarchies are drawn at that time, where else one monarchy is red and one monarchy is blue. They are always colliding with each other for some strange reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess because people are familiar with the whole blue and red, so I try to adapt those colors on my comic as well. So and each chapters, this is what I realize is that like I like to fix on a color scheme on the certain chapter. So like chapter 1 is all mostly blue and yellow because it is talking about the coronation. It's about ascension. And then when it comes to chapter 2, it's talking about the astral who are in war. And because it's on the astral side, it's mostly red. Yeah. And then now that is back on chapter 3. Chapter 3 is talking about Felton's his day-to-day tasks in military. So, but he is a Senation living in Esther, basically the red country. Therefore, how do I make someone blue into the red? I have to make sure that he stands out because he's not part of the astral. That's why the backgrounds are mostly purple, which is still on the warmer side, and his blue hair stands out. So I guess there's a lot of like complementary colors that I learned from college, and I try to apply it in my comic. Yeah, and because like how blue, the psychology of color for blue is they are smart, they are reliable, trustable, and all, and that is the trait of a Senation. They are very wise people, and that's why they have technological advancement. Like you see all the ships that are flying. Whereas the astrals is still more on the primitive side. It's like something like North Korea and South Korea. One is advancement and one is still primitive. So the red like represent bravery, fire, passion, that sort of thing. So I try to, when I come out with my colors, I make sure that it aligns with the psychology of it. And I guess that's how I came out with my colors.
Yeah, it sounds like you put a lot of thought into having the more thematic side and like just trying to get things to be more symbolic even with the colors.
Yeah. Everything I do with Dandelion Promise is sort of symbolic, like from the title to the coloring to the characters to like I'm not sure if any of you know, but like my the way how I name my countries and all are based on flowers and plants. And one of my audience actually found out.
Oh, I
It's
didn't notice.
So again, like if you realize the flag, like the red one is actually like a chrysanthemum, and then the blue one is more of like a cornflower kind of pattern. So, but they are all under the same family type of flowers, which is called, I'm not going to try to pronounce the name, but I name it Astra because it is from that family title name itself, like Astraceae. I try to pronounce it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah. So yeah, I really put a lot of effort into making my world. Like, why is it chrysanthemum? Why is it cornflower? That sort of thing. Like chrysanthemums means royalty to certain countries. That's why they have that flower as their regal pattern. And for the cornflower, when you search for blue flower, the cornflower will come out because because it is widely known that the cornflower is in blue, and there's not a lot of blue color flowers. So that's why it is the regal for the Sanition, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So, could you talk a little bit more about the Scandinavian influence on your art in the series?
Yeah. I really love the Viking vibes, primitive medieval Viking era, basically. And from a young age, I knew I wanted to do something Viking related. But I didn't know much about the myth or the mythology, the Norse mythology and stuff like that. It was something that I came about much later in my life.
Mm.
And to be honest, I didn't even know Marvel, like Thor, Odin, were from the Norse mythology at one point in my life. I didn't know that. It was later when I was playing God of War, then I realized, like, oh, so these characters are from the Norse mythology. So, and I really love how they created their monuments, their I don't know how to describe the thing, but you know how I do the first page of my chapter where there's like a
Yes.
depiction. Yeah,
For everyone who hasn't seen it, it's like, how do I describe it? It's almost like a tableau. Like, it's
yeah,
really cool, and it's in almost like an older, more ancient style. Like, you know how they the more ancient stuff is like kind of flat and more symbolic than it is in like perspective. And there's a lot of very cool design elements that you can see in a lot of Scandinavian or like the early what was I gonna say? The early what's the word for the UK before it was the UK? But like that time period of art.
medieval.
Yeah.
Is it?
I mean, it is medieval, but that's not the word I was looking for. But we can just go with that. I'm never gonna guess it, but it looks super cool.
It's really partly hugely influenced. Why did I say partly hugely? It's hugely influenced
It's
by
hugely partly.
influenced by the Scandinavian culture. I love it. I mean, I love historical stuff. I love going to museums. I'm a boring old soul. Like, I love to look at arts.
Same.
You know, to spend time. So, and it really astonished me that how people back then, how they record their art in such a way. It's like, how do you come up with this pattern, you know? Like, you must be starstruck or something, like, or ate some mushrooms to be this high to come up with this pattern. I don't want to like offend any culture here, but that's how I felt. Like, it's such an art, basically, you know. So, and because I sort of knew Dandelion Promise is more on the Viking primitive era, and like they want to record their story, their legacy down. So I thought like having that sort of art in the front makes sense, because in the end we are listening to their story, you know. So that that depiction of every chapter in the front is basically what the chapter is going to talk about. Yeah, it's just because I have a huge interest in his history basically, and I wanted to adapt those art onto my own craft.
So, what are the symbols that you use? Like, it's obviously their language, but are they like actual? Is it like actual like runes or language, or have you come up with them?
Actual runes. Unfortunately, I'm not. What's his name? The guy that created Lord of the Rings. What's his name?
I should know this. I should actually know this. Tolkien. It's Tolkien, right?
Yeah,
right.
Tolkien. Yeah. I do not have such big brain power like him to create my own language. So yeah, I use Elder Furtak, if that's how you pronounce it. I'm sorry if I butchered the pronunciation, but yeah, it is a Norse rune language. And of course, when they are doing it, they are doing it based on their own Norse language, or in today's world, it's probably Icelandic because they are the closest to the Norse, the old Norse language system. But I don't know Icelandic. I'm not gonna. I mean, I want to learn Icelandic, but do I have the time to learn Icelandic?
Just fit that into your schedule too, along with the background.
Yeah. So in the end, I just like decided, you know what, I'm just gonna keep it to English, but like but translate it into the Elder product system so that if you find the cheat sheet for it, you will know what the story is about, or maybe some secrets that I try to like hint in. That's what I love about certain medium like games or like movies. Like, you know, they throw all these things in their background, and if you take notice, it actually talks about the story. So I really love that thing. I really love looking at backgrounds, even though I hate doing it, but I love it.
Yeah.
So it's a love-hate relationship here.
And I feel like using it just adds to your story so much too, because it feels a lot more real for the setting than if you were to just write out everything in English.
Yeah. I like to make my audience do hard work, I guess. Because I myself like to do those as well. Like, I like to like decode stuff, you know, go online to find out what does it mean, that sort of thing. So I'm making my audience doing the work.
If you guys are listening, go after you're done listening to this video, go and try to decode everything. We'll see.
But someone actually decoded.
Oh, someone
decoded.
Oh,
yeah. They posted on the comment section, and I admire her effort. I'm like, wow, you deserve a pat in the back, man. She probably spent the longest time looking at my background, trying to decode every single word.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I'm really happy, but like, because when I was doing the comic at the time, for the production time, I was like, do people actually take notice on this stuff? Will people decode it? I was like, it's okay, I'll just do it for myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, now that someone is actually doing it,
yeah.
I'm like, what?
So it's definitely worth it. I have some stuff that I've snuck in there. People haven't caught everything, but I've had a couple of people at least catch it, even though they've guessed wrong, which is exciting enough that they've noticed some of the stuff I've hidden. Okay.
I love looking at comments, so they are my support system.
Yeah.
To want to move forward. Yeah.
So, how did you come up with the story?
The story is, I've worked for it for about like 10 plus years already. And it is really my journey being a human. What I like and what I dislike, what I felt unfair and what I felt fair. It's just a mix of it. And oftentimes I look at Dandelion Promise as it's my depression project, basically. Because when I'm depressed, I found hope in it. In a way. So cringy, but yeah. I totally understand like how certain people because I am gonna talk about real topics like having PTSD, you know, having anxiety attack, having how does it feel like to work in an environment that has huge politics in it, and how I feel as a person. So I basically pour it all out in a comic. So sometimes when I see comments like saying things like oh yeah, this is how the real world works, it really does put comfort in my heart that like, oh, someone out there is also feeling the same thing, and it needs to be talked, because I understand that like especially in America where the racial thing is a concern, so, and I don't know, I just felt like DP is a very safe place for me to talk about it, how I feel as an individual, because there is some sort of racism here in Malaysia, but it's just not as widely spoken in America. It's always behind your back, basically. So if you feel something, means it's probably true, because that's how the society works here, and how some of the Asian country works as well. Like the whole hierarchy system of like you are never supposed to step on your senior's foot, that sort of thing. But so later in the story, basically, Felton is really good in what he does as a medic, but he is a Semishan, and he is getting a lot of discrimination from the Astral, because due to reasons that I cannot tell yet. But just know that there are reasons why the Semishians are being hated so much in the Astrals. It's because of the history in the past. But seeing how Felton overcome the situation for himself as a person is really something that I want to talk about for people. Like, in the end, when you are working in a working culture, does race matter or your skills matter? Of course, obviously your skills matters, but for some strange reason, the way how society works in the working world is that you don't want to step on someone's foot, no matter how good you are in your line of work. And I really didn't like that, because when I was working, I actually have someone who is on, in a way, upper hand on me, but the person is not performing their day tasks, and because of that, I, as the underlings, I need to suffer. And when I try to voice out to the company basically shut me off by saying that, oh, she's more senior than you, so we cannot allow that to happen. And that sort of thing just kind of disgusts me, Like, I work my butt off for the company, and the company sees me that way. So it really, in a way, it really is my depression project, just put it this way. That's how I came up with the story. It's really based on my own life experience. And like how Ian also has PTSD symptoms, because I myself has shown signs of PTSD as well, because I got into an accident in 2017, and it still haunts me today. Whenever I drive, or like I'm sitting at the passenger seat, I still get really nervous and sweaty, and because it's driving, driving is like your day-to-day life, and especially in Malaysia. You basically, I mean, as much as we have transport system, our transport system still is not as great as certain country, so we still rely on driving a lot. And I remember the first 2 years, I was really afraid of driving because of the accident that I had. I have to go for a psychiatrist, to get medication to help with my PTSD. But in the end, like, somehow over the years, I managed to calm down a little. I'm still afraid right now, but I'm sort of like better at it. So when for Ian's story, it's basically how he overcome his PTSD, or like in not a sense overcome, but more like how he lived with it. You know, the trauma of what he had. So, I mean, I'm sure a lot of audience will want to say their own thing, but like also it would really mean a lot to me that if you can respect how I decided to write for my characters, because it's just based on my experience.
Yeah.
But then because Dandelion Promise is really a very heavy topic. It's like, you know, The Crown, Netflix series The Crown. I really love that show. I recently just started that series and I really love it because it speaks about real problems that the royalty faces.
Yeah.
You know, of course it's dramatized, but like they do speak the real problem. And I get it that it's a very heavy topic and it's really hard to binge, but it's those kinds of story that makes me want to do storytelling more, you know.
Yeah, stories where you have to really put yourself and think in the other person's shoes rather than, I don't know if like spoon feeding is the word, but like I feel like you have to really connect to them to really find enjoyment from them.
Yeah. I mean, I remember there was one episode where Queen Elizabeth, where she was questioning about her education system, about how much education she has received, and the Queen told her that she doesn't need such things. She just need to stay quiet. I was like, yeah, that's how some of the society still works today. Like, they want you to be quiet, you know. And I just felt it's I mean, it's not my place to say something, but like I just felt it wasn't right. And I really just, more people need to know about these politic issues when you're facing as an working adult. Because obviously we are not getting it in our education system.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter where you're from. That's true everywhere.
Yeah. It's like, I wish people tell me about this earlier before I started working, you know. So, but at that time there was no story that fits the cube. That's why I decided to make the cube myself. I'm really glad that like certain people are actually agreeing to what I am saying for chapter 3 when Felton was introduced and his day-to-day life. How is it like to be discriminated? That sort of thing. Yeah. It brings comfort to my heart, but also it's very sad because like I can't believe you guys are feeling it too. I don't want you guys to go through this path, you know.
Yeah, it's one of those things because it's like, of course you want people to relate to your story, but then it's hard to also at the same time want people to relate to your suffering because that seems kind of selfish.
Yeah.
And you don't want people to have to gone through that.
Yeah. So for people who has been discriminated, you know, or like felt like you're not bringing your worth onto the table, just know that you're doing enough. You are enough. Okay.
Yeah.
Nothing else in the world matters except you for yourself. Yeah.
So let's talk about your writing process a little bit. Do you write your episodes like one episode at a time, or do you script in like chunks, or do you have like everything scripted?
I have the entire outline planned out already. Like I know what things are going to happen in each chapter, but I don't have the dialogues. The dialogues only happen when I am doing the pre-production itself. That sort of thing. That makes sense. Like because I'm not good in dialogues, and when I look at my first draft, my outline with dialogues, I feel like puking, you know, like vomit blood. Because like, oh man, Joanne, what are you writing? But somehow my editors understood what I'm trying to say, so like they are okay with my outline. So as of now, it's really just production on the script in terms of dialogues. Yeah. And I only have season 1 all planned out. Season 2 is still not set into stones yet, but I have a general idea of how is gonna go.
Mm-hmm.
So I just need to figure out the details
Yeah.
while I'm doing season 1.
I forgot what I was gonna say, but oh
I mean,
yeah.
how would you write? How would you write then?
Oh, how do I write?
Yeah.
So I have a outline, but I've changed the outline very heavily. So I know how the season's gonna end, but I'm still working on how I'm gonna get there because the original intention was for this to be a lot shorter than it's going to actually be.
Yeah.
So I take my outlines and I like to make sure that I'm many, many episodes ahead, even though I'm not caught up to the end of the season yet in my writing, just so that I can easily change things. And then I write in chapters too, so I'll script a whole chapter all at once. And I usually change the dialogue pretty heavily from the script to the actual page, because I also am like, I don't like my dialogue, so I mess with it a lot. But
I love
your
dialogues though.
Thank you.
I think your dialogues are really good. But yeah, I do realize that you are more of like I'm not sure if you know the term like plotters and pantsers writers.
Yeah.
So I felt like you were more of like the pantser writer.
Oh, definitely. Oh, we should probably explain that to like listeners. But a plotter, like, you plan out the whole thing before you write it, and a pantser, like, you sort of, maybe you have a small general plan, but you just take things one step at a time and you find out with the reader.
Yeah. Well, I'm obviously more of a plotter, but yeah, sometimes I am a pantser as well. But most time I'm a plotter, so I already know where the story is going, how it's gonna end, what's gonna do. Yeah.
And then it's like, it's not like there's one better than the other. They both have their own sort of like individual things that they're helpful for. And usually you want to try to aim for something in the middle. So if you're a plotter, you might want to work on your outlining a bit, just to guide you.
Yep.
And then,
but of course, allow yourself to be imaginative where the pencil part of you comes out.
Yeah.
Give yourself some surprise when you write.
Like, the struggle I see with a lot of the outliners is they know their plot, so they're just trying to get you from like one moment to the next, but they're not thinking about whether you're actually enjoying the moment when you're in whatever random part of the story.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
that's just something
that's
to
where
watch
the
out
editor
for.
comes in.
Yeah, that's where the editor's great. And the editor's great for pantsers too, for different reasons, but yeah.
Yeah. Like, I guess for pantsers, editors will probably be like making sure that they have a certain goal that they want to go, rather than being none at all. Like, making sure that they stay in path.
And everything makes sense, and everything's like actually leading towards something, and it's not just random. Yeah.
Yeah. And for plotters, basically editors is trying to allow the writers to challenge themselves in finding something new rather than being rigid. Yeah. So it really depends what kind of writer you are.
Definitely. So how do you keep track of your series timeline?
I mentioned I have an outline written. So, and I wrote it based on the years. Like, in this year, this is what's going to happen. In this year, what's going to happen. Because age is a huge thing in the story, because I am bringing my audience back to the past to find out what went wrong for Ian or what went right. So it's really crucial for me to make sure that I have all this timeline written out, so that when I do the production, it doesn't jumble up, like it doesn't make sense. Like, it's like, hey, in this age he's supposed to have his tattoo, but how come his tattoo is not appearing here? That sort of thing. Like, so because Ian has his tattoo starting at the age of 21, so it's gonna be hard work for me. But basically, after 21 years, I have to constantly draw his tattoo. I have an outline to basically keep me going. But of course, I can add things like this Christmas special episode. It was not written in my first draft outline. It was something that I came about much later that I felt like, oh, I think it's a nice story to talk about, and I think it can be a canon thing. So, yeah, I allowed myself to be a pencil once in a while.
Yeah.
And make sure that it fits in the outline, yeah.
So it helps be flexible. It's different from how I do it, because, like, for me, it'll be like, I'm in the shower, and then all of a sudden, it came to me. This secret plot twist where Aloe finds out that she's really a giant tree that can move and talk. And then I'll just write it all down, and then I'll just let it sort of like simmer in my head, and then like maybe a week later I'll be like, oh, and the tree is also magical, and the tree can fly too. Of course, that's not a very good example because I'm trying not to spoil everything, but it's like basically random bursts for me.
Yeah, you are a classic example of a pencil writer. Basically, your bath ideas popped out of nowhere and like, yeah, this makes sense. I'm gonna write about this. Whereas for me, whenever I have a bath thought, it's usually it's like, does it work for my plot? You know, I whenever I have an idea, I will always go back to my editors and ask them like, does it make sense? And then they will think about it, and then like, yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, yay, I can put it in.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't make sense, then I'm like, okay, scrap out the idea then.
Or like, even though I'm a pantser, it's super important for me to write everything down, or I'll have, as we were sort of talking about with the timeline, well, I'll have continuity issues if I don't make sure that everything's written down, even though I am coming up with things all the time, you know? I've been trying to do some, like, backstory work recently, and then I realized that the timeline totally did not make any sense. But luckily there was an easy fix, so I just had to slightly adjust a character who hadn't appeared yet's age, so that wasn't really a big deal.
I love doing backstories because I think it either it helps my story or it destroys my story.
Yeah. Or they're so nice because it's sort of like it's what allows you to make your characters actually do stuff and feel like they're actually performing actions rather than the sort of like Deus Ex Machina stuff where maybe someone just randomly shows up and they're like, here's the key to the secrets of the universe. You just gotta use it. It's totally different.
Those kind of writings need help.
Yeah.
I mean, doing backstory does make your character, your world more richer as well. So I do agree. Writing backstory does help a lot. And it does train your brain to think backwards a bit. Basically, when we make choices for our characters, it's usually because the choices came from a culture, you know. Or how were we brought up to make that sort of decision. So the reason why I say I love to do backstory is because, one, it makes your world richer, but it also helps you create a culture for your world. And like how to make your character think for themselves rather than you think for them, you know.
Yeah.
Because when I'm writing for my characters, I usually would say like things like, oh, what would Ian do in this situation? What would Felton do in this situation? It's like, rather than what I would do, you know. It's because I don't live in their culture. I mean, although it's based on my experience, but in the end, it is still their experience. It is still their world, their culture. So, yeah, for people who, you know, despise doing backstory because it's a lot of work, but like, if you truly love storytelling, doing backstory is a fun time.
Oh,
it's
yeah,
your playground.
definitely.
Yeah.
how I
So yeah, just
torture all
something I
my
wanted to
characters.
say. Hmm. And that's why I say it can either break your story or save your story.
Yeah. Now, let's move on to our last section and let's talk about some advice. So,
Why? All right.
I was wondering, what advice do you have for someone who's just listening to this and they're like, okay, I want to start my first comic?
Planning. I mean, I guess a lot of people usually will say, "Oh, your first comic will not be the best one you make. You know, you will not gain attraction, that sort of thing."
Mm-hmm.
If whatever I'm saying makes sense, but like technically, you can make your first story a good comic. You know, a good story. But of course, it comes with experience and years of planning. So for me, like Dandelion Promise is my first comic, and I've been through so much, like 10+ years of planning
Mm-hmm.
to be where it is today. So my advice for people who, you know, you sort of know that you are gonna do your comic, but you just want to make sure that your first comic is good because you're a fucking perfectionist like me. But, so the advice that I can really give is find your editors earlier, find the things that you want to talk about earlier, you know, and start to plan around it. But for those people who just want to start for the sake of starting because they can't start, then yeah, you should start. Don't give a shit of whether the comic works or not. Just start. So it really depends on the kind of people you are who are watching this. Like, are you the one that you just need a start, therefore you should start, or you need some sort of guidance to help? Then yeah, seek out, you know, take initiative to ask around people to help you, because creating a story takes a lot of brain power.
Oh yeah, you have
You
to
know,
be very big brain.
yeah. So when you have two brains to help you, I think it can go a lot more faster than I am, because like the almost half of my life I was doing it all alone. So right now, the 3 years that I have with my editors, things are moving a lot more faster, because yeah, I have a second brain right now. Oh, third brain. So these are the kind of advice that I can give to someone who is really taking it seriously. And you know, I'm sure people like this have complaints. I have complaints. Back then, me was like, don't know where to start and all. So I was just saying, like, maybe you can start by crafting your skills. You know, learn storyboarding, learn composition. There are many places you can start. It's just which one are you willing to put your time first, I guess.
Yeah, and you'd be surprised how many skills feed themselves into comics. Like, definitely wanting to learn about storyboarding helped me, and the fact that I did screenwriting classes in college, that super helped me.
Yeah. So I think storyboarding is another set of skills, because like you need to learn about composition, how you want to where your character should stand, what kind of props it's gonna be, you know, is it gonna be a long shot, is it gonna be a close-up shot? All has its own reason. So yeah, it really depends. Like for people, if you just want to start a comic for the sake of starting, then yeah, just write. You know, don't be afraid of publishing it. You know, that sort of thing. I'm at the age where I felt like, man, I should have studied earlier. You know,
I feel like
I often
everyone
felt
feels like that almost, though. Honestly, same. I don't know how old you are. I'm pretty sure I'm younger than you, but same.
I think you start at the right age, but if you can be earlier, it'd be great. But I think you're at the right age to start. I can't say I don't have much time, but like I always felt like my life is seeping away from me because of all the medical bills that I have to pay for myself. So I guess the advice is start earlier. Don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Or at least start for yourself, you know.
Mm.
I think a lot of people forget that like when they start they sort of like, oh, I have to do it for someone rather it for themselves. I mean, don't be afraid to agree that this project is for your own, you know.
Yeah.
Because for the longest time I felt like Dandelion I felt like Dandelion promise was it needs to speak to people, it needs to speak to someone, but actually like it can just speak to me, you know. I can be my own biggest fan.
Yeah. People definitely feel people can definitely feel whether or not you're into your comic too, I'm pretty sure. So ideally don't try to make something just to appeal to someone else, because it might fail anyway, and then you will have just wasted your time if you write something that you're not very into and it doesn't end up popular. But like, I've heard from successful people too who write something and they're not very interested in it, and it becomes popular, and then they end up almost like sabotaging themselves in the long term because they don't want their project to be successful because they don't like it, you know?
And you need to be your own biggest fan.
Yeah.
Basically. If you can't convince yourself, you can't convince other people. So that's what I feel.
So could you talk a little bit about like workflow advice? Because I'm really interested in like, so we talked about how you do like the watercolor coloring.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any tips to do that like efficiently?
So okay, I guess I can. I try my best to explain it because I'm not good with words, but okay, I'll try my best. But basically, once I created the outline, I would I will block it, a color block, basically like a flat color. So then after that, I create a new layer to sort of like clipping mask on top of it, so that I when I do the watercoloring, it doesn't run out of my outline because I already have the color block, you know.
Yeah.
So at least that's how I find efficient for me. Like
So
rather
you're using
than
like a lot of clipping layers and like masks.
yeah, they really help a lot in making my process a lot faster. Because actually, when I'm doing my Christmas special, not in that way. I'm actually just coloring at it, and it is like how a traditional painter would, and it does take more time because you have to rub away the edges, you know, that sort of thing. Whereas because the watercolor brush that I'm using, I cannot just like color pick and just dump like use the paint bucket tool to paint it.
Yeah.
I can't do that. If I do that, the watercolor effect would not work. So I have to still kind of like color it on myself. So yeah, the color blocking does help in that way from making me have to erase edges, unwanted edges.
Yeah.
So at least that's my workflow. In terms of the entire process of my comic, I am still trying to find a better way to do it by showing the storyboard and the dialogues together. I recently found a way I can eliminate the sketching process and just go straight to production after I send this to my beta readers, basically.
Oh, this looks. You guys probably can't see this because I'm not gonna edit the video that much, but it looks super cool. But yeah, I could totally see what you're talking about with this. Do you want to like kind of describe it for people?
Basically, what I did is that I paneled my my paneling, my storyboarding, with the dialogues next to each other. So because when I send this out to my editor sometimes before, when I was doing the old storyboard, it doesn't have the text with it. I actually have to write the text on the speech bubble. But my writing is horrible, so I usually have to send in the document as well of my dialogues, and then they have to refer like side by side. So this is my new current way of doing it, where I put the dialogues with my drawing together, and like so, and then the dialogues I would like put like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the dialogues is like coded as well with the colors and stuff like that, so they know who is talking. And so far, I think this is probably the better way for me to do things. As of now, I do not know what I'll come out in the next run, but I am happy with this because it can eliminate my sketching process. I can just work from the storyboard straight to production.
Yeah. I also do the numbering thing because my handwriting is so bad. Or even when so it takes me forever to write because my handwriting is so bad, but even when I do write things out, it's usually completely the wrong size because my handwriting is just so weird. So then I'll have to re-letter everything anyway, so it's just so much easier to just number everything, you know?
Yeah.
And
I guess because previously I was working in a shorter, smaller file size. So when you zoom in, my writing is like blur. So, and I cannot put a lot of focus on how the character expression to be like. So most of the time back then, my storyboarding was like basically just a T-shaped face. There's no expression or nothing because I do not have the space to create a better sketch in a way. But now with this format, I can make my sketch slightly more detailed for my beta readers to read.
Yeah.
To go through. And like they still understand what I'm drawing.
Yeah, I can definitely see from this that they're definitely going to be able to follow what's going on. So, time for the last question. Are you ready? Do you have Do you have any life advice?
Life advice?
Yeah. It could just be about anything, just some life advice.
Be a good person. I think the world needs more good people. Treat each other nicer in a way.
Yeah.
Do what makes you happy. Yeah, I mean, of course there are societal expectations, but in the end it's still your own life. You know, you don't want to live someone else's life because that kind of life is not a life, it's a jail. I'm seriously not the best person to give any life advice because I am struggling to keep my life together. I mean, I can say one thing.
Okay.
Make sure you have savings.
Yeah.
You have money savings.
Yeah, financial stuff is super underrated for artists. I feel like you just go out all excited, you blow all your money, and you're like, why is there not money coming back at me really fast?
It is an artist problem. Like we are not comfortable in talking money, but money does make the world go round and round. So if you want to pursue art comfortably, then yeah, have a savings. Unlike me, who has no savings. Basically every month I have to earn enough to make sure I can put bread on the table. And yeah, that's the whole reason why my comic can take such a long time, because I have to prioritize on putting food on my table. If not, I'll die.
Yeah, the comic wouldn't go too well if that happened. Oh.
When you are doing full time, you know, like money is a huge problem.
Yeah, I feel like it's sort of like the buffer too, where if you have savings and you know if something happens that you have something to fall back on, it also makes you more able to think in the long term too, because you're just a little bit less anxious in general.
Something I wish past me would do, but oh well, future me has to handle it right now.
Yes. Okay.
I guess that's my life advice. Don't make your past you miserable, or your future you miserable, basically.
Do you have any social media you'd like people to follow?
Currently, I only have Instagram and my Webtoon. I've been thinking about going on to Twitter or Artful. I don't know, but I don't know where the people are. I just know Instagram, but Instagram is being a shitty place right now for artists. So
Honestly, yeah. What's your handle for everyone so they can follow you?
it's called The Art of Joanne Poon.
Mm.
Basically, it will be the same as my Webtoon name, author name. I basically make it easier for everybody to search me up.
Yeah.
Basically, The Art of Joanne Poon, yes.
Everyone, make sure, now that the interview is finally over, make sure to go read Dandelion's Promise. If you want to hear more about me, I have a couple of other interviews up. I do other content, and I am the creator of a webtoon called That Witch Is My Sister. But yeah. Anything else you want to
read
shout
her
out?
comic, please.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I want to shout out more for your comic. I mean, like, I love what you're doing with your dialogues, and I feel like people need to know more. So, what are you waiting for? Go and subscribe to That Witch Is My Sister.
Thank you. One last thing before we end the interview. I'm redoing the beginning of my comic right now, and it's crazy to see how different the writing is from like my current stuff to like the new one, because I'm only redoing one of the chapters. I'm redoing my least favorite chapter, which is the episode 3. It should be done by the time this interview goes up, because I think it's gonna go up in 2021. But it's just so crazy to see how different the dialogue is.
I mean, well, your art also has improved a lot, like a lot.
Thank
you. I need to capitalize a lot. So I'm really happy to sort of like found you earlier. I mean, or recently, because I get to see how you have grown as a comic artist and a YouTuber. I really would love what you're doing. Keep it up.
You.
And yeah, I really want more people to read That Which Is My Sister, because it's really worth your time. Like, every time that I have now, I would binge read a comic. So yeah.
Thank you. You guys can't see it, but I'm smiling really, really hard. But
you just have to imagine it in your face.
Yeah, you guys just have to imagine it. But yeah, so let's end the interview here. Thank you so much for coming. This was so much fun, and I think I learned a lot. I learned so much.
For having me.
Okay.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for doing this. Yeah.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.
Bye.